And then it's going to pop up and show my big book going back to my sugar.
We're learning.
We're learning. I told him be gentle.
And
Always.
Oh,
see if
yeah.
I'm going to look. Yeah. We're
Be nice because I might get fired over this. Are we there?
Technology is not your fault. So.
We're just, yeah, I am totally like, yeah. Yep, we're live.
We're live.
Okay, awesome. We have been live. Thanks for working with us as we get used to doing this. We're all still newbies, but we are here this evening with Tally Johnson. Yay!
Hey,
Welcome everybody. He wrote the book Ghost of South Carolina Upcountry, and it is an awesome book. And he is a native of Lyman, which is around Spartanburg, but he lives in Chester now, and I am just so pleased that you're here. Thank you so much for taking your time out to come and join us.
Thank y'all for having me.
And so, just to start out with, you want to just tell us a little bit of where you're from and maybe, what got you into writing ghost stories?
Yeah. I'm from Lyman, which is Mill Hill just outside Spartanburg. Kind of like Lancaster was probably 80 years ago, but it never grew up like Lancaster did. Went to Spartanburg Methodist in Wofford, and my wife got me into writing the ghost story books, but Nancy Roberts got me into doing ghost stories because she came to school when I was in 5th grade.
So you actually got to meet her?
Yes.
Awesome. She's passed now, right?
She passed in 05, I think. But she came and did the ghost stories and kept talking about places like Charleston and Columbia and Camden and Savannah, and I'm like, I know where all that stuff is. And the older I got and started driving, I'd go out and try to check it out and see what would happen, and I met friends who'd go with me, and it just went from there. And then I did ghost stories when my wife taught 2nd, 3rd grade. I was entertainment before Halloween parties. I got drafted.
In so many ways.
In so many ways.
And when I got drafted, she said, just tell them some of the ghost stories and stuff. Okay.
Cool.
And I went to a conference with the library, and History Press was there, and they said, we want a ghost story book. I said, well, I have an idea for one. And they said, great, get us a first chapter and a synopsis in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So I went from idea to chapter to published in a year. And it is not the way you want to do something.
Yeah, I bet.
You did great.
But yeah,
Awesome,
folks
you
seem to like
cheerleader.
it. So
That's awesome. So any awards for your books or?
I have won the Caldwell Sims Award for Excellence in Southern Folklore from the USC Union Upcountry Literary Festival.
Nice.
I was the first winner of that.
Awesome. Awesome. And you've wrote how many books now?
4 books of ghost stories from South Carolina. There's Ghost of the Upcountry, Ghost of the South Carolina Midlands, Ghost of the PD, Civil War Ghost of South Carolina. I have an anthology of Southern Gothic short stories called Creek Walking, and I've had stories 3 other places.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And so, but now you live in Chester. Before I get into the book, and so you live in Chester now, and you brought your lovely wife. You have any children or anything?
No, ma'am. We no children. We had a miniature dachshund who passed earlier this year after 16 years.
Oh wow.
But
Yeah.
We're getting a new dog, though. He doesn't like to admit it, but we're getting a new dog.
It's coming. You see that he went.
Yeah. But yeah, been in Chester for 25 years, so I'm almost a local.
Yeah. And are you working or planning on writing more books?
I am working on a coastal ghost book and a Revolutionary War ghost book. Both of those in South Carolina.
Awesome, but you won't have to write it in 3 weeks.
No, I have time to actually get these done. I've got the research finished. It's just trying to get it all written.
All right. Well, like I said, I read this last night, y'all. In 2 hours, I was just enthralled. I was just like, I was like, I started it, and then I was like, running the bath water, and I got in, and I was just like, my water was ice cold by the time I got out. But I was like, oh my gosh, it's really good. I like how you started. I even like how you said about how you feel about ghosts and everything, and that you said I myself am of two minds about ghosts and their existence. You want to talk a little bit about how you feel about ghosts and your belief in that?
I believe in ghosts because I've seen them, and I've had experiences that are strange. But I also think that people who believe in ghosts spend money on ghosts. So there are a lot of places who've never had a ghost that suddenly have one. And that's one thing I have to look out for when I'm doing my research is how old's the tradition, or is there even a tradition? Because if you're not careful, someone's trying to make something up to make money, which nothing wrong with it. But I'm trying to do more serious research, trying to stay close to true anyway.
Right.
But,
well, and how you began it. I love that you started with the county, but not just starting with the county, but that you told the history of the county and the Native Americans being there and the time period they were there, and then moving into about the governors and the senators, and then going into the story, but you're just stating what people have. You're just telling what people have told you, and that front part, when I read that, I like that you didn't add dialect and all that, because it is kind of you have to study, like, okay, wait a minute, let me figure out what exactly they're trying to say there, and then to add your own experience that you went to try to see yourself. And I was just like, awesome, because I love history, and especially American history, and definitely local in South Carolina and history. So it was just, I really, really enjoyed it. And what was one of the, I know you had in there that the first time you saw a ghost, you saw the little boy, right? Was that the first time you'd ever seen a ghost? Whenever you was at the cemetery, y'all had something to do, a church function, and you all were out playing hide and seek?
Yeah, that was in Spartanburg. That was the first one I can remember. But my mother told me after the book came out that I had been around for a ghost when I was about a year old. We were living in Jackson Mills, which is another little mill hill near Spartanburg, and we had rented a 2-bedroom mill house, one of the square ones. And I'm gonna date myself because no one else will. She was in the living room watching Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
And Dad was working second shift at the mill before he went to work for the railroad. And she said that about 11:45, the front door flew open, and she heard something metal scraping on the floor, going down the hall, and then the door to the bedroom that my crib was in flew open. And after about a minute, the scraping came back up, and you heard somebody sit down on the wood steps. Never saw us up. And of course, she picked me up, went to great grandma's, we spent the night, and the next day they started trying to get out of the lease. It turned out that about 50 years before, the older guy who owned in that house had a younger wife. He worked second shift. She worked first. She started hanging out with her boss. He came home early one night, saw the boss's car on the street, grabbed the axe off the porch where he'd been putting wood, went down the hall, and interrupted them.
Wow.
And then drug the axe back up the hall, sat down on the front steps and waited for the sheriff to come.
Wow.
And they arrested him and took him. And about a year later, they put him in the chair in Columbia. But yeah, well, that was my first ghost story, but I had no idea about it until I was grown.
Well, have you ever thought about what, you hear about babies being born with
With the call.
yes, on the face and different things like that. I know in my family, they call it the sight. I'm from West Virginia, so of course, mountain people, and it's not because of the moonshine. Some of them really do see things that are real. But do you think there's something that it has affected you before you were born, or you just think you're just lucky?
I really think it's dumb luck because the three of us could go on a ghost hunt. And I hate that term because I don't know what ghosts eat. I don't know what you bait the woods with. You can't put them on the wall. You can't put them in a freezer. So ghost hunt is a stupid saying. But we all three go, and you may see something. I'll hear something, and you won't have anything. We go back in the 2 weeks. I won't see anything. You'll smell pipe smoke, and you'll hear something. And it just varies so much that I think it's more dumb luck. But I think there are people who are more willing to have something happen. I've got some friends of mine who I have gone investigating with, and I've had things happen, and they've been with me like within arm's reach. Nothing. But I think they honestly don't want anything to happen. They actively
just denied it, blocked it. Yes.
Block it.
And I'm glad you brought that up because Tammy has had experiences and everything, and just jump right on in there, Tammy. I know there was things she wanted to ask you. And
Have you ever heard Loblolly up near Greenville and Malden? It's an insane asylum. We used to go driving out there. I was about yay big. I wasn't even a teenager yet. We'd go driving up there, and it was, I wasn't.
Is that the one at Paris Mountain?
Up near Paris Mountain, yeah.
Yeah, that's the old Devil's Castle.
Yes.
And it's the it turned out it was actually the old TB hospital.
There you go.
And that was one of the ones that broke my heart because that one's in the book.
Yes, and we used to call it Loblolly.
Okay, I never called it Loblolly. I always called it Devil's Castle.
Yeah.
But that one broke my heart because that had been one of those foundational stories when I was a kid. I think if you're born within 100 miles of Greenville, you win at least one.
Yes. You had no business up there.
Yeah. And I'm doing research for the book, and me and my friend Bill are riding around because I have to go to the places. That's part of my thing with the book. And we go, and it had been 15 years since I'd been.
Yeah.
But, once you go somewhere 2 or 3 times a year for like 3 or 4 years, you remember how to get there. So I'm riding around, and I'm like, the gate's gone.
Yep.
Hey. And he's like, well, what about, and we come back around and we look, and they've torn it down. They've clear cut the trees, and they've built some kind of park. And I'm like, Thomas Wilson, right? You cannot go home.
You cannot.
But that was one of those that the story that we told ourselves was better than what actually, because basically it was a TB hospital. It was depressing. I think someone bought it, built a house on the land.
Yeah, and it just had a weird vibe to it.
Yeah, it felt off, but I don't think it was actually haunted. But
I think it just had a lot of sorrow stuff in it.
Yeah, because so many people had passed.
Yeah.
But I remember that the creepiest thing about it was they had this big gate that they had basically welded these cut off pipes on the front.
And it just looked so
looked like the jaws of the devil.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
man.
They didn't
Yeah.
close it all the way. They kept it kind of like half open, but instead of doing like this, it was open,
Yeah.
like it would snap your car shut.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It was
And-
horrible.
And it seemed like we always wanted to go after dark, or
Of
like
course, it's
Saturday
not good
night.
to go at daytime.
I know, right?
And the dare was always, I dare you to pull up to the gate and see, because we were convinced that there was a remote control
And somebody was going to
and somebody was going to snap your car. So yeah, I think in the book it's Devil's Castle. But I
Devil's
think
Castle.
now it's Hurt Klotz Park or something.
Yeah, Greenville has changed so much.
Oh yeah, Greenville's
Oh,
exploded.
my
It's
gosh.
ridiculous.
But Loblolly, we always called it Loblolly
Okay.
during my generation.
Well, I think Loblolly may have been the South Greenville, and then us
Yeah, but we,
eastern side folks, we called it Devils.
yeah, I don't know what side I was from, but we called it Loblolly. Greenville Senior High people.
Okay. Well, I was burned, so that's what it was.
That's what
And
it
maybe
was.
what it was.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yankee and.
One side of the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, my brother used to tool up there. I was his little mascot at the time,
Yeah.
so I had no business being with
Oh,
those
yeah.
teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. No one had any reason to run around up there.
I know.
Didn't stop us.
Didn't stop us at all.
No.
But yeah.
What about your scariest experience?
Yes, what was your scariest
The Opala Theater in Chester. It used to be where the little theater was, and now the church had it. They're thinking about turning it into like a family life center. But we were doing an investigation, and we'd had weird things happen all along, and the theater was tremendously haunted. And we were up in the balcony, and the guy who was in charge, in quotes, said, "Go down the stairs and make sure the door to the alley is locked, because we don't want homeless people coming in when we leave and everything." And the main power to the building is cut off when the building's not in use. So we're standing there in pitch black, or there are no windows or anything. I'm like, okay, and it's basically like a dozen stairs, 6 on a landing, then 6 more to the door. And they're old 50s concrete steps with that big, thick metal lip on each end, and the non-flip. And I go down, I hit the landing, and I walk into a choke slam. Like if you've ever watched wrestling, the Undertaker picks somebody up by the neck. Yeah, that was me.
Oh.
There was less of me then than there is now, but I was still not little.
Yeah.
And I'm probably 2 inches off the ground, still walking. And after what seemed like 20 minutes, it was probably about 2 seconds, I get slapped across the face to the point where you can see handprint.
Wow.
And the guy behind me is losing his mind laughing. And he reaches out,
Thanks.
grabs my belt, and pulls me back. And I'm fine. And of course, I call him everything but a child of God and a friend of man. And yeah, if I used any of the language now, y'all couldn't be on the internet for anything. And he said I had to make sure she was still here. And my response was, "Who?" And he's like, "The girl." I'm like, he's like, back in the 50s, a African American cleaning lady was assaulted on these stairs. They found her body in the morning, and apparently she had hit her head on one of those metal lips and had a skull fracture, and that's what she passed away of. The only speculation is that a white male person attacked her, because those are the people she doesn't like.
Ah.
Later that night, I sent a female in the party down the same stairs, all the way down, all the way back up, and I got cussed at for making her go up downstairs. So,
That was always my preferred way of going up and down the stairs in that theater, actually, because there were 2 ways to get into the balcony, one of which was very treacherous. So that was always my preferred way to get up there, because you could see you had just enough light to be able to see the light bouncing off of those grips So I preferred to go up that way.
But you didn't never. Have
I never experienced the lady though. Now my older sister was using that staircase to go up and down that staircase for somebody in the light booth, and she felt somebody rush past her, but she was never choked or anything like that.
And I like that you put in there about the witches in Lancaster County.
Oh yeah.
Because I had read it somewhere, I don't know where, and everybody was kind of like, well, we hadn't heard that, and I'm like, yeah, in Lancaster there was. Was it an actual hanging, or did they just burn them, or? But that was the only time in the South that the witch trials occurred. Am I
and
right?
I don't think they hung the lady. I think they found her not guilty, but it was the only time they've had a witchcraft trial.
Okay,
So
but she wasn't
Yeah, I don't think
put
she
to
was.
death.
Yeah, I think she was just one of those wise women that she could work roots and she knew how things worked. Which herbs, if you've got a sore throat, chew on this. If you don't, rub this on your chest. And,
medicine woman.
yeah, medicine woman kind of thing. And I'm sure, just like up north, there was probably some kind of thing where she had a piece of property that somebody else wanted or whatever. But I mean, basically, that's all it was. And that's one of those things. One reason that I think the book has stayed so popular, because it's not a brand new book, is so many people have moved into the upstate and the upcountry in my lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
In the last 20 years especially.
Well, just like you said, Greenville has just
Greenville
exploded.
just-
Indian land has exploded.
And none of these people know really anything about where they're coming to. Now, it used to be when we were kids, our parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles all lived probably within 25 miles of each other. Even the ones who got mad and left, you could go see in an hour. I mean, it wasn't like everybody cross country and time zones and all this. But one thing I've learned doing local history and stuff is people don't have the institutional memory anymore. Like, if I ask most people in Lancaster to name somebody famous from Lancaster, I get, huh? Which is just the nature of the beast.
Right.
And one thing about the book, the reason I put a little history in there too, is you have to know the circumstance. Because if you don't know the background of where you are, you don't know enough to know if the story's true or not.
Right.
And my favorite example of that is Poinsett Bridge up near Greenville.
Yes.
Because there's another book that is otherwise really good where the lady who wrote it calls the people, one of the ghost story at Poinsett Bridge is you hear people speaking a foreign language on the bridge just before dark, and you'll see lights around the bridge. It's not a pandemic. I've just got allergies. But in this book, she says that the voices are those of Chinese laborers who built the bridge. My point, that bridge was built in 1825. You have second generation African slaves whose parents probably came here and spoke no English. And not to mention the fact that if I'm going to talk junk about my boss, who can literally kill me if he doesn't like my attitude, I'm not going to talk smack in English.
Right.
I'm going to speak a different language so I don't get smacked by a whip or hit with a stick or whatever.
Right.
They're speaking like Igbo or Kinsala or something along those lines. Because Chinese coolies built the railroads out west 50 years later.
Yep.
They didn't build anything in South Carolina before the Civil War. But if you don't know anything about South Carolina's history, and you've seen people build railroads and bridges and stuff in the movies, yeah, it's Chinese people.
Yeah.
Because the Irish spoke English. No. And there are other things. There's a story, I think I mentioned in the book, where the Spanish conquistador walks around downtown Landerston. Weren't any conquistadors, but someone saw that and said that, yeah, well, it makes sense. So,
Right.
Yeah.
so you kind of have to know where you're at to know what makes sense. But if I tell you we're going to go ghost hunting and go find the Japanese Zero airplane flying around McWhorter Field, weren't any Japanese planes over McWhorter Field in World War II. This ain't Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to kind of say, you're trying to cause trouble. I'm not
Yeah.
going.
Right.
Even as teenagers, we had enough sense to know that if that doesn't make any sense, I'm not doing that. Sometimes.
And I love how you included, like, you went for the dog. What was the name?
Happy Hound.
And your wife was like, no, it's too cold. It's going to snow. I'll just stay here. I love how you included that because it made it so more personal and everything. And so, but the dog did chase you.
Oh yeah.
That was a good story.
The Happy Hound is one of the few goes that I've actually gone to see more than once. I mean, I've actually gone out there, parked in the church parking lot, and waited. Like I'd be coming home from Columbia for a meeting or something, and that's you come through Whitmire to come up 72 to Chester. So it's not out of the way. And I've gone down there and I've sat 20, 30 minutes in the middle of the night just to see what would happen.
Yeah, I got to do that. We got to do.
We gotta do it.
That.
It ain't
Yes, we're gonna do it.
That ain't far. Go
It's
down
not.
72.
We gotta do it. We gotta
I
go
wanna
to
see
Whitmer.
it. Yeah, I want to see that.
We're gonna do it.
Number 9 to
Yes.
Chester, 72.
Oh yeah, that's how I go to Greenville.
Almost to Whitmire, before 385. Though.
Yeah.
Before you get to 176, so the road to the left called Maybenton Road.
Okay.
Turn right, go down, and I think Goshen Church is about a half mile down on the left.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the way we go. We go through Whitmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you if you go get to Whitmire, you've gone too far. But you
Okay.
turn left on Maybenton. And it's
Maybenton.
down there on the right.
Awesome.
And you can sit and wait, and then but I don't think that the Douglas Gate's there anymore. But that's one thing that was kind of funny. I was doing a signing for this in Newberry, and as part of the signing, I told that story. And a guy stood up and said, "My God, you're the first one to ever tell it right."
Aha!
And I'm like, I was still really new at doing ghost stories in public and for people who weren't captive kids.
Right.
And it was my first book, my baby, and then like he's like, I am the one or two great grandsons of Dr. George Douglas, who owned the plantation house where the gate stands. You're the first person to ever tell that story and get it right.
Awesome.
And I'm like, I can just about retire. But because when you've got somebody who's a witness and a participant in the original story, and they're the thing that tells you you did it right, then yeah,
You're good.
Yeah.
it's awful close.
Nice. And I'm glad you also talked about like Susan Smith and because I know that really affected me because I was in high school when it happened, and I remember he wasn't my husband at the time, but I remember us just sitting there going, "There's something that lady something's not right."
Yeah.
And then I remember about the van. I didn't hear all the story about the van and everything, but I visited before they put the marker up for the boys.
Yeah.
The nice little monument for them, and then I visited afterwards. And each time it's just like I didn't see the orcs, but there's just a feeling. It's just a feeling there.
Well, I've seen the only thing the Orcs once. But that's one of those places when I do the Upcountry Festival at USC Union about every year. I have for about the last 6 or 7. And when I come home, it's always late afternoon, so I always stop there, and that's when I stretch my legs apart because I have bad back and bad knees. Every time I stop at Long Lake, it's creepy. I mean, Does
Yes.
not matter if it's.
And that's the perfect word for it. It is creepy.
Yeah.
It's just something I didn't want to, because I don't want to be like, but it is. It's just creepy.
I've
It's
never
creepy.
been there. I think
You
I'll
need to
have
go. We'll have to go again.
We'll have to go there. Another road
time.
trip.
Yep. Road trip, y'all.
Road trip.
But it's
Um,
one of those things where, I mean, because, I mean, you go and you cannot even know the story. And, I mean, I've been out
And
there
you'll
and I've
still feel
seen
it.
people on the. John D. Long Lake is one of those DNR lakes. You know, you go out there with your paddle boat, your canoe or whatever, and you can bank fish off the dam. And if you've got a boat, you can fish there at the boat launch there and on the other end, too. And, I mean, I've seen people out there fishing from me to the road from where I'm sitting right now. And it still feels like I put on a wet wool sweater of just creepy. I'm like,
yeah.
it's time for me to go. And I have just stood up out of the car. And I'm like, nope, time to go home. And because it just feels creepy. That's the only way I can put it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even I saw the orbs. And I think I've noticed this over the years too. I wasn't looking for ghosts. I'd been driving like a long time, and I need a break. And this is a spot where I can get out and walk around the car once or twice and just get my feet, feel my feet again. And looked up, I saw the orbs, and it was like the tumblers in my head finally came into place. I'm like, you're at the dam at John D. Long Lake in springtime. Have you lost your mind? It's just like I sat up in the bed almost, like, no. And you know, I mean, it wasn't when I was like, I gotta go find the ghost. It's like I got to get out the car. And it's just, oh, by the way, the spot you picked.
Yeah. So you just kind of fell into that one a little bit. That was a hard story.
Yeah.
And it is. It's just there's no other word for it. It is.
Yeah,
it's just
sad.
creepy.
It's
it is very sad. So and
Goosebumps.
I know you had some more.
Well, just more things that I've seen,
Mhm.
that, like, and they're not in your book, but
Yeah.
Charleston. I know it's not upcountry, but
Mhm.
I worked there for about 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And have you ever visited the Charleston jail, the old Charleston jail?
I have.
Did you ever have any?
No. And it's a shame because
I like her little giggle.
the best known, you don't know, the best known haunted of the old Charleston jail is Lavinia Fisher,
Yeah.
who is one of the, if not the first, one of the first American female serial
Serial
killers.
killer. That's what I was thinking. Yes.
She was the brains, and her husband John was the muscle. Supposedly, people would come stay at their tavern overnight. If they flashed any kind of bankroll, there was a fall-away bed. She'd put them in it after she got them drunk. The bed would fall. If the fall didn't kill them, John would. They'd keep the money. Make sure they got caught. John confessed, pled guilty, and I think he got life in prison. Lavinia had the famous line when she got walked down on the scaffold in her bright red dress. If you've got a message for the devil, give it to me. I'll be seeing him in the flesh shortly.
I got goosebumps. I remember
Yeah.
hearing
Look
that,
at
and I was
you.
just like, oh.
I have been to the jail. When I went, though, it had been taken over by the College of Arts and Design or something.
Yeah.
So it's been cleaned up a little bit, and they put in things like Wi-Fi routers and hotspots and all the cabling things.
That ruined it.
So we got some stuff, but I'm not sure if it's
Interference or not.
if it's interference or actual weirdness happening. So, I have Charleston stuff in the Civil War Ghost book.
Yeah. I've had two.
Yes.
Let's say you should have brought something.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but you may have an opportunity to get one of those.
Okay.
So,
Very soon.
so
Like Next Saturday,
Next Saturday?
October the 30th,
Yes,
12
possibly.
to 3.
12 to 3.
Yeah.
Right here.
Right here.
With a food truck.
There you go.
Gotta have food with scary stories.
Come for the food and buy a book with your friends. There you go.
So, now out of all the books you've wrote, which one was your favorite?
It's almost like picking a young'un, but I have to say your firstborn is usually your favorite, and Upcountry was my first book, and it's kind of the book that I knew that if I didn't write, I didn't think anybody else would. Creek Walking, the short story anthology, is a real close second because that title story speaks to me as a kid on the mill. But yeah, Upcountry is my baby. It really truly is, because I mean, like you asked about Charleston. Everybody asked about Charleston and the Gray Man and that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I know a bunch of ghost stories from north of Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever puts those in the books. No one ever asks. So I'm like, if I don't get them written down soon, won't be anybody left to remember them, because they're going to bulldoze wherever they were. And some of the stuff in the book's gone now. I mean, even some of the stories that I've told that were new at the time, the place has been
Like Loblolly.
closed down. Yeah, First Class, Double Castle, that's gone.
And I know there was a bridge, and I can't remember which story it was, and then years later you try to get back to it and you still couldn't find it. I don't know if
I can't remember which bridge it was.
May have been seven doubles.
Maybe
The one over at Woodruff.
might have been.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what it was that you saw there. I just remember, yeah.
And I've got several places, and we're going to have to road trip some of
Oh
them. but
gosh, yes.
Lots of places in Chester I want to go see. Because, I mean, that's just right up the road.
Well, and I will say, if you don't want to go across the Catawba, you can go to the PD and go east.
Oh, I'll go anywhere. I love
Because,
that.
I mean, there's Chesterfield stuff, there's Camden stuff in that one. And you get it from the History Press, too. And, in fact, I want to say Lancaster's as far east as this one goes. So you'd have to get...
The Piedmont one. Yeah, I think you're right.
You'd have to get PD to have the set. So if you go to the other side, you can find stuff over there, too. So you have to get at least two of them.
Of course, we have to have the whole set.
Yes.
And I mean, if
definitely.
people come from Charlotte to Lancaster to buy stuff.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
So, yeah.
Yep. So I like the story also of the hitchhiker.
Oh, yes. I'd heard about that one growing up.
Yeah.
Tell us,
Larry.
tell us your experience of the hitchhiker and the muddy water in the sea.
Yes.
Yeah, Larry Stevens, and this one's been around since the 50s. Going up Highway 107 from Walhalla towards Cashiers, North Carolina. There's a stretch of road between a place called Moody Springs and the Piedmont Overlook. And it's two-lane mountain twisty road. And it's probably not even a half mile between the two spots. If you go that way and it's raining and stormy, little spits of rain we had this afternoon in North County, it has to be actually a storm. You'll see a guy in a brown trench coat, blonde trench coat tied at the waist, walking on the side of the road, not towards you, but with traffic. And he's harmless. Because when I was in high school, I stopped and picked him up because I felt sorry for him because it was horrible weather and I was going camping because I don't have good sense. And I picked him up, and I'm in a 88 Ranger pickup, off seat and power, one of the first ones with power locks. And he gets in and he says, "My car's at Moody Springs." I said, "Okay." And he doesn't put a seatbelt on, but I'm like, "We're not going far, and I don't think I'll fall off the mountain." But I hadn't been in another car since I left Walhalla. So go around the curves, and we get close because there's a little bitty sign about the size of a bottle of water that says Moody Springs over on the left-hand side of the road. And I look over to ask him what kind of car he's got, and my seat's empty, but it's sopping wet. There are a pile of wet pine needles and oak leaves and things in the seat, and my floorboard's got gunk all over it. And I'm like, okay. He didn't jump out because the door didn't ding and the door was still locked. I ain't going camping. And I went to, being the nerd that I am, I went to the library later. And turns out this guy named Larry Stevens, who got his flight training in World War II in the Air Force. When he got home, he decided to get his civilian pilot's license. Flew out of the airport in downtown Spartanburg Airport. And on his first solo flight, right up in the mountains in Oconee County, and crashed the plane at the foot of the mountain Highway 107 runs up. Took about 2 weeks to find the body, and when they found the body, a large part of the lower extremities were gone. Because there are bear in those mountains, there are coyotes in those mountains, etc. Things did not go hungry after the plane crash. So, but they said that he was dead when he hit the side of the hill. He was already gone. So, but yeah. The hysterical part of that is me and my friend Bill have gotten really into hammock camping and going to Burroughs Ford, which is one of the campgrounds off 107. It's one of our favorite spots to camp. Every time we go camping there, the weather is nasty in Chester. By the time we get to the other side of Greenville, it clears off and everything's beautiful. And I keep telling him, it's like, if we go and it stays nasty, you have to get in the back seat and give Larry a shotgun. He's not a fan of that, but I am. So.
Yeah, and I know you said in the story that that was the first and only time that you slept all night with all the lights on.
Yeah. Again, I was not looking for a ghost. I was going to spend senior week in the woods instead of going to the beach with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I was going to go camping for a week, and I was looking forward to it. And this happens, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Not me. Where's my MTV at? And, yeah, I'm not doing that.
I love it. I love it.
Oh gosh, I'm having a ball.
I know I'm really enjoying this, and I'm loving hearing all the stories, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones in there that caught my attention that really, was like, ooh. Because like I said,
I know some haunted places in Greenville.
Okay.
Okay, Greenville Senior High. I think they call it Greenville Senior Academy now because everything has to be an academy now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There's a violin player that plays on the 3rd floor. And if you're there after the bell rings and you're in one of the classrooms on the 2nd floor, you can hear her play. And I have heard her play.
oh, cool.
Yes.
You might have to go and investigate now.
Yes. Because I was like a library assistant in the
Mhm.
state after a while. And I don't know her name though. Okay. Another thing, my boyfriend, first husband after high school,
Mm-hmm.
he was a, what do you call them when they do the cameras and the lights for the theater? Stagehand.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a lot of the help for that. And there's somebody that sits in the seat in the audience. He's always there. Don't know who he is, but you see him before every show.
That's at Greenville High.
Greenville High. The
Okay.
school's
He's like, he's
100
making notes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, remember, honey?
I know. I'll end up going all of these crazy places.
Well, I don't know. Because schools are weird, but nothing else. I can tell the story if I can't use it in the book.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because of the Fort Mill story. And I love that you put the story in there, even though they just laughed and was like, yeah, Friday the
right.
13th, it's fine, nothing happened. Called on Monday, yeah, nah, nothing happened. And I like that you included that.
Yeah. You got to include it because it's folklore.
Even if it doesn't happen, like I know there was always this old house in West Virginia, because I'm from Summersville, and there's like an Indian painting on the side of the building, and they said if you take a picture of it, that it disappears. It won't show up in a picture. Well, of course, then I took a picture.
Of course.
And then, of course, it showed up. And then my aunt was like, oh, that's just an old story. The mayor and a bunch of other guys used to go over there and gamble all night, and they just didn't want anybody to find out they were over there playing poker all night.
Well, yeah, and a lot of them are that way. You have the story to hide the real story.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to steal that about Greenville High.
Yeah.
I could do some digging on that, but that's relative to my interest. But about the places that say they're haunted and not, and I say that in the book. If I go somewhere that's haunted and nothing happens,
It might just be
I'll
an off
say
night.
it. Well, just because people have gotten the expectation from movies and TV that
Yeah.
if you go on a ghost investigation, something always happens. But that ain't true.
Mhm.
And there are places like Crybaby Bridge that are just, or Fort Mill High, that are lies. No offense to all the multitudinous high school boys watching. Crybaby Bridge is a lie. You know as well as I do, so just don't even bother. The only one that comes close to being true is the one over near Anderson, the one on High Shoals Road, because there's actual documentation that the accident occurred, that the girl was thrown from the car, the baby did die in the creek.
Yeah.
So that one I'll give probably a 1/10 scale. That's probably about a 6. The rest of them are about a 1.
I
It
know.
being true, 0 being an absolute mama gonna slap you a lie. One, I'm giving you a 1 for benefit, but yeah,
Mhm.
everybody's got one, and there ain't one of them true yet.
I know that's I know here in Lancaster, a Crybaby, we have a Crybaby Bridge, and my boys were like, let's go to the Crybaby Bridge, Mama, and I'm like, which one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every bridge seems to have
Yeah,
the
a
Crybaby.
Crybaby
It's a
Bridge.
Crybaby
And
Bridge.
you should have asked them why they wanted to go.
Yeah, well, I gave them that love of spookiness and
No, because most of the time, if I say I want to do a Crybaby Bridge and I'm a 16, 17-year-old boy, it ain't because I got a love for spooky. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, because what is it? Fear is a better way of getting someone excited than anything else, right?
It's the theory is if you get scared, you'll jump into my arms and
Right, and you have to be the knight, the
Knight in
knight in
shining
shining armor.
Yep.
Is that how he won you?
so ladies,
No,
ladies,
no, because
that would
bad
be a
things
lie.
happen when I get scared.
yeah, she's more one of those that gets nauseated as opposed to falls out.
I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
I like the
funny.
worst. I like the worst ghost hunting partner ever.
Oh my God.
How often do you go on these excursions?
Not as much as I used to. 2 or 3 times a year, unless I get something that. But people, I've had friends tell me about, you got to go to place X. But on occasion, I'll do those. Most of the time, it's a couple times a year. I don't go near as much as I did when I was 25 and footloose and fancy free. Now any kind of trips further than an hour takes a lot more planning than they used to.
Yeah,
Don't they
unfortunately.
though?
It's being an adult. I don't ever want to grow up.
Y'all, it's hard.
It is.
Oh.
This well, if there anything extra you would like to add, I'm looking forward to reading your other books.
Oh, me too.
I'm really excited. I've
Copies.
yeah, well, definitely you'll bring copies of books, and we'll be here October the 30th,
Yes.
12 to 3, and there will be a food truck. I love also the history of the Civil War and everything, so I'm looking forward to reading that book of the ghost stories, which you had a few in here.
Yeah.
A couple about the Civil War that I thought was really some of where the fella,
Yeah.
they fell in love and he was from up north or something, and then he just left, and so she,
Find a way.
or was it that she and I might be getting them mixed up.
You probably get them mixed up because you read them so quickly.
Yeah, I did, because I gobbled them
It sounds
down.
like that
Is it
sounds
where
like,
she hung herself with the bell and then the bell rings?
Madeline,
Yeah.
up at Newberry.
Yes, I think
Newberry
it was
College,
that.
yeah.
Yes. But because I could see that really happening. I mean, there was
Yeah, back then.
back then, you know, and so yeah, it was a joy to meet you.
Yes.
Thank y'all for
I
having me. I
have
appreciate it.
Enjoyed this so much. It was so interesting, and we could probably talk for hours.
Oh, God, yes.
But I know y'all need to get home, and you got to take care of Joe. I thought of you. And but next week is going to be fun, and we'll decide if you want to, depending on the weather, if you want to be in here or outside, whatever make you more comfortable.
Whichever way works best. I'm easy.
Sounds
I
like.
like
Is there anything you would like to add? Maybe some other book signings you may be going to, or anything else, or upcoming books, or anything you'd like to announce?
The only thing coming up, this thing here on the 30th.
So, okay, people, if
We're
you
in.
want to meet Tally Johnson and get your own copies of his books, which are awesome, you got to be here October the 30th, 12 to 3. Did I forget anything? The food truck. Did I say October the 30th, 12 to 3 with the food truck?
Food truck.
Yep.
Come
I
on.
think I finally got it. But
Yeah.
all right. Thanks everybody for joining us, and I look forward to seeing everybody this tomorrow, next week, and definitely the 30th. Did I say the 30th? Happy reading, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me run to the car and grab y'all one of these. 'Cause I do have a couple right here.
Awesome.
I'm trying to kill it. I'm trying to kill it.
Yeah, we're newbies, and but this it just really I'll be honest, the last one I done, Tammy texted me in the middle of it. She's like, "Are you gonna vomit?" I was like,
I'm trying to kill this.
and I was just like, let them ask the question.